I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Plymouth Board of Education of May 8th, 2024 to order at 7:01 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Item number 2. I would like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add item number 9AA, adoption of the new budget, to the agenda.
So moved.
Motion Greg.
Second.
Second Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 3, approval of minutes. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of the Plymouth Board of Education held on April 24th, 2024.
So moved.
Pat?
Second.
Greg? Any
Second.
discussion?
Second. No, Greg beat you. Oh, sorry.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, item number 4, we have a presentation. Mr. Falcone.
I'm going to talk as loud as I can so everyone can hear, and I might try to turn both ways. Stand here at first. When the board decided to rescind their vote on closing Fisher Elementary School, we made a decision not to discuss the building closure until after the budget was resolved and completed. And that will be done later on this evening. As you heard, we're going to be voting on moving the budget forward as we have presented it. So at this point in time, we have to revisit the discussion of a building closure and discuss the decision the board wants to make and how they want to move forward. My presentation this evening is broken up into 3 different components. The first component looks at why the board made the decision in the first place. They looked at 3 things in making that decision, and I'm going to go over all of those 3 items with you. The second component of the presentation looks at some pieces of the puzzle that might have been missing. And then the third part of the presentation talks about 3 options the board has and how they want to move forward with this discussion. So looking at the first slide, and I believe Pat, my administrative assistant, is handing out the presentation to everyone right now as we speak, because you might not be able to see it on either of the boards, and it will also be posted on our website. So here's my first slide, and it talks about the 3 items that the board looked at in making their decision to close Fisher Elementary School. The first, they looked at the September 2019 facility study, which happened and was completed right before COVID. They felt there was enough information in that facility study to move forward with a decision of a school closure. The second thing they looked at is the fiscal oversight that they have and their responsibility to the taxpayer to look at buildings that are not at full capacity and what we could do to help support the taxpayer with regard to that situation and scenario. And the third thing that we looked at as a board was the Smart Start grant, which we had information at the time might not be renewed, which helps support one of our pre-K classrooms, and looking at the new kindergarten law of start date going from January 1st to September 1st, and the impact that would have on our pre-K program, which it's had a pretty significant impact on our pre-K numbers for next year and our wait list. So those were the main items the board looked at and felt there was a sense of urgency to do something to try to resolve these issues. The question comes to, were we ready to make a decision to close a school? The necessary steps is data and research. It's having a really thorough plan to close the school. We have to look at a reasonable timeline and the impact on that timeline on families and children, and the grade level configuration as well, and what makes the most sense from going from a 4-school configuration to a 3. And then if you look to the right-hand side, it says community input and feedback. There are certain pieces of this puzzle we realized we were missing. And so ultimately, and this doesn't come out on your slideshow there because I did it in red, the board rescinded their vote, knowing that there were pieces of these puzzles missing. They saw the distrust that their good intention of trying to do something right for the community had, that they misstepped possibly in 1 or 2 areas, and they went right back and rescinded that vote. Because the last thing they wanted to do is ruin the trust between the community and the board. But what's next? Where do we go from here? The board has to make a decision. And ultimately, there are 3 options. And I feel like this was more dramatic when I didn't give you the presentation beforehand. You're all looking at it already. Because I'm going to bring up the slides one at a time, and you're like, yeah, I have it here. But the first option is to actually make the decision not to close the school. The board, now I'm saying there's 3 options. There's obviously more than 3 options, but these are the 3 options that I would recommend to the board to make a decision on, is to not close the school at all. We stop talking about it. It's no longer a thing. We're keeping all 4 of our schools open. Option 2 is to table the discussion for a later date. There's a lot of talk, and I see a number of faces in here that are very familiar to me, because they've been at meetings where our mayor is working hard to look at revitalizing the downtown. And he has a plan. And he's working with a group to make that plan become a reality. We also have a number of new subdivisions that are being built in town. So the board might make the decision to table this discussion to a later date because of maybe some information they don't have all the answers to right now. That is another option they have, and this wouldn't be discussed until that date. Just like we did when we said we wait till the budget is complete, we won't talk about it, we were good to our word. We wouldn't talk about anything with regard to a school closure until the date we tabled it to. And option number 3 is looking further and doing another facility study by an outside organization that's qualified to do that study, that will kind of give us more direction and guide the board on whether it is, 1, possible to close a school, and 2, what configurations would be recommended, and go from there. Those are the 3 options I put in front of the board to discuss and ultimately vote on this evening. And those are my recommendations. But I want to talk about the facility study real quick. Because even if we have a facility study done, and we spend the money on that study, and they have recommendations for us, the board still has to decide whether we are going to close a school or not. Ultimately, it's the board's decision. If they decide to close it, we have to look at a reasonable timeline. A timeline that prepares parents, a timeline that prepares children, and a time that aligns with what I heard from feedback from parents that doesn't impact the students that have already been impacted through a redistricting already. Also, if they decide yes to close a school, which grade level configuration would be the most appropriate for a 3-building district instead of a 4-building district? Those are the decisions that have to be made by the board. But the important notes on the bottom that I'm glad I memorized because I can't read them from back here. It really is community input, community involvement. It's you as a community knowing the details of that facility study just as well as the Board of Education and having a voice in the process. So that's important if we do a facility study, how the board moves forward with your feedback. So we strategically set up this meeting where I'm presenting first. And then there's public comment for the board to hear how the public feels about these three options that I know were just thrown on, so I get that. But they were just thrown on them as well. And then the board will make a decision in a roll call vote later on in this meeting on which option they feel they should move forward with at this time. Do any board members have questions for me with regard to anything that I presented? Thank you very much.
All right, at this time, we are going to move on to item number 5, student representatives. Jacob?
So there are many different senior class events coming up over the next month. And on Friday, May 24th, it will be the Holiday Hill Trip, which is a very fun day for seniors where they get to hang out with each other for one last time before graduation at a nice place. And then prom will be held the following Friday at the Grand Oak Villa at 6 p.m., which is another nice event for the seniors. And the senior dinner will be on June 6th. And then 5 days later will be graduation, and the after-grad party will be after the ceremony. And there are also a few events within the music department coming up as well. This Friday is the Six Flags trip, in which the band and the choir will have adjudicated performances. And next Tuesday at 7 o'clock is the spring concert for both the chorus and the band, which is a free event for the community to watch. And on May 27th, the band will participate in the Memorial Day Parade. And additionally, there's a senior dinner for those in the music department on June 3rd.
Very good. Charlotte?
So the High School Musical, or the Drama Club just had their performance of High School Musical a few weeks ago. The judges of the Seven Angels Theater were there to watch. They watched their students' performances and were possibly nominated for a Halo Award. The Drama Club wanted to thank the Aporto family for the help with their show. All members of the family were a part of the show, and it wouldn't be possible without them. Also, the high school had a formal for you. Around 100 prom dresses were donated and collected by the school and were given to students of Wamogo, Thomaston, Terryville, and Lewis Mills High School.
Excellent. Mark?
Evening, everybody. Recently, 15 students attended the Ryan T. Lee High School Leadership Conference at Cheshire High School. They heard from distinguished speakers discussing leadership within many different fields, including NBC Connecticut's Kevin Nathan, Tom Pecora, who is UConn's men's basketball coach. I'm sorry, Quinnipiac's. And then Carly Thibault Dudanis, the head coach of Fairfield University's women's basketball team, and Sebastian Little, who's a mental health coach. A lot of team building activities, ways to be a leader in many different fields. I did it last year. It was a fantastic experience, and I felt like I learned a lot, and I applied it to my senior year. Next Friday is Senior Give Back Day, just a way for seniors to give back to the community that many of them have lived in pretty much their whole lives. Currently, we have about 60 seniors signed up, and a couple of places are the police department, community gardens, ambulance corps, town green, fairgrounds, and the Congregational Church. And then scholarship night will be hosted on May 23rd here at the high school, bestowing students who receive scholarships. And over $250,000 is given out from local organizations and families to students that are receiving them.
Great, thank you very much. As always, student reps, you are very welcome to stay, but if you have other things to get done, you are also welcome to leave. All right, that brings us to item number 6, which is public comment. Please make sure that you sign in at the podium and state your name and address Please remember also this is public comment. If you have questions that are specific to any topic at all, the superintendent or someone on our administrative team will get back to you with the answer on that. This is not forum for us to answer questions at this time.
Hi, Becca Allen, 17 Megan Boulevard in Plymouth. Thank you for the presentation that we just saw. This, I believe most parents will agree that this is the way that we want these conversations to start, so we definitely appreciate that. I would like to make the board aware of my own feelings on this. I understand that we have a small community, and I definitely think that while closing a school right now might make sense, it might not make sense in 5 years. And I know we don't want to disrupt our kids over and over and over again. So going off of a 2019 study I don't think is the way to go. Things have changed so much in the last 5 years. I can't even anticipate what they're going to look like in another 5 years. I definitely think that we should be having discussions about regionalization or partnership with other small towns in our area, whether that be a regionalized school district or whether it be just partnering with them on other things that might help. The other things I definitely want to make sure that I touch on are, if we do move forward with this and we have those discussions, the timeline is, I think, the biggest thing, along with the grade, the grades that we select for the schools, because I know that those are really the biggest points that most of the parents talked about at the last meeting. So please be cognizant of that as we're having these discussions, that we don't want to rush into anything. If a decision needs to be made that a school is closed, fine, but let's make sure we're taking the time and we're doing it the right way, and that we're not going to be harming our children or harming their educations. The last thing I'd like to touch on is when it comes to telling the public and the community how much money we're going to be saving by closing a school. Let's be real about it. Let's say if you're saving it on your budget, but it's just moving to another budget. So if we're not having a reduction in students and we're not really having a reduction in staff and it's just building, let's make sure that we're looking at those costs and how those costs are being transferred to other budgets within our town that our taxpayers are still responsible for. Okay, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Wes Donahue, 24 Knoll Lane. Just a couple of things that I wanted to discuss with the board, or not even discuss, but just share with the board in regards to thoughts on this process. Obviously, last time was a huge fiasco, everything, and I think it was greatly appreciated that you guys did vote the way that you did in order to study this further. There's a couple of different things that I think need to be brought up. One is the population trends in the area. Occupancy rates in this town are up compared to where they were in 2019, so that needs to be considered. And the population data that was reflected in that 2009 or 19 study for students was showing somewhat of a level off at the end of it. So I'd be cautious to kind of make a judgment on that. I think more recent and updated data is needed in order to be able to make kind of an educated and informed decision there. We all know that once one of these buildings closes, it's not coming back. That is a foregone conclusion. So I just think that we need to consider that, again, before we make another decision. And I think there's just one missing element, and to kind of piggyback on the prior speaker's comments. If that decision ultimately is made to close a building, I do feel like the town side also needs to be involved in that with a plan as to what to do with that building. Because we've seen in a couple different instances where a building was closed and nothing was done with it, or it's still sitting there, up to this day. And I understand that one of them was sold and there's other litigation going on, that kind of thing. Totally get that, but I think a concrete plan needs to be part of that entire package that you present to the public whenever this decision is made. So, and my final comment is that the parents that are here, the parents that are listening at home, we're here to help. We're part of a team, and we want to be part of a team. So I would just kind of leave you all with that, and that's really all I have for tonight.
Anyone else for public comment, please come up to the podium, sign in.
Marty Sancho, 7 Richmond Drive. I've been attending some of the meetings on the redevelopment that the town has applied for a grant and gotten. And there's a outfit called Gorman in New York that I think has done an outstanding job giving us the information that we need to go forward with redevelopment, whichever way we want to go. But they did a great job, and they kept personalities out of it. It was all very proactive. What do you think? What do you want to do? And I would like to see the board consider doing something along those lines. So everybody, this company actually presented information that we all knew, but probably didn't want to accept. And I think if we go along those lines, we can come to a resolution on this here where everybody is in agreement. There's a meeting coming up, I believe, Monday of this week with their final recommendation to the redevelopment committee, and then it's going to go to the town council. But in 6 or 8 months, they took a whole bunch of information, and I'd like to see that information presented to the board and to the different committees in town. We have a redevelopment committee going. We actually have a committee, an ad hoc committee that's looking at if the board decides to close Fisher, what are we going to do with it? So I think all these things have to be considered. Thank you. Go ahead, look, I just got something.
Good evening. Brooke Matuzak, 99 Todd Hollow Road. I want to thank the board for having us here and having this open discussion. And Mr. Falcone, thank you so much for sharing the ideas on those slides. They're really informative for us to know. I also want to point out, I was really appreciative to hear the consideration for the mental health and the transition that so many of our students have been through since that 2019 report went out. So again, I truly thank you for being able to recognize that. I too want to express my support for option number 2. I think that given the change that's happening, as was pointed out already, enrollment and housing and the excitement that builds around the mayor's plans for revitalization, the new subdivisions, it is in our best interest as a town to hold off at this point and to see what comes, do further studies. And then I believe it was promised at that Board of Ed meeting we had in the auditorium that we would reach out to the community, have surveys, have forums, ask for more input. And I just don't see a lot of that being done yet. I understand that we had to wait until after the budget, but I really want to get back to that promise that was made to invite more discussion than simply a Board of Ed meeting at 7 o'clock on a really busy evening. So I hope that you all will support number 2 and give a lot more time to look into the importance of education in our town.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay.
Melanie Church, you know I couldn't keep my mouth shut.
It's okay.
According to the 2020 census, Plymouth, Connecticut has a population of 11,671, which is a decrease from 12,243 in 2010. Plymouth is the 88th most populated city in Connecticut out of 169 towns. What I want to bring up, I think more, as you saw now, there's 4 teachers layoff. If you close a school, there's going to be layoffs. Is it going to be teachers? I don't believe so. Don't know so, but don't believe so. I believe we're going to lose janitors. There's going to be a principal, a vice principal. But what is important are the teachers for the children. And I can almost guarantee you, you're not going to lose a teacher. So what is the most important job in the town? For the children is the teacher. Now, unfortunately, you're laying off 4 teachers. It's not making you happy. But when you have schools that are only 60% full, 60%, you're wasting money on heat, lights, staff. It all adds up. And the extra money that's in the budget will not be cut. We cannot cut the Board of Ed budget. Not 1 penny. So what does that give you more of? More teachers, more programs, more curriculum. You want to give your kids more, and yet you want to help the taxpayer? You have to look at both sides. It's not everybody's against kids. Not everybody's against education. I fought for curriculum in this town, even when my kids were not going here. And Roxanne McCann looked at it and started fixing it. But we had a problem. I think there has to be more open for the parents to see the budget and see how the whole process works, and where they can see what they need. And also, the old people don't want to shove the kids to the side. So don't play that game either. But it's time to look. We cannot keep going 60% full in 4 schools. It's not fair to the taxpayer. And I will say one thing. The town side, I've seen people in the last 2 years get 86% increase in pay. Get a 10% increase in pay. The private sector doesn't do that, but the town side does. And I don't see that going on here. So I think it's time to start looking and maybe opening up more, encouraging the parents to come to the budgets so they know what you're dealing with. And stop thinking that and pitting the elderly against the parents. That's where I think it has to end. And I still believe it needs to be looked at. It doesn't mean it has to happen this year, doesn't mean it has to happen next year. But if you keep looking at it, the answers will come. Thank you.
Hello, Sarah Nazardo, 16 Whitney Court. My comments really quick. I think the first few parents said it really well. I'd also be in favor of option 2 with if we can do an option 2 and 3, also getting some updated data, because 2019, 2020 data, it's out of date already. So whatever the decision is, I'd be in favor of waiting till things settle and making the decision on updated data. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else for public comment? Okay.
Candace Telke, 82 Ridge Road. I apologize for being late and missing the presentation in person. I was, however, listening to it in the car while I was driving a teenager somewhere. Like someone prior to me said, it's really hard to make some of these meetings with 4 kids in 3 different schools and lots of different activities. It's very difficult. Today in particular has been difficult emotionally for these kids. My daughter has separation anxiety now, being through so many transitions, going through such a very detrimental part in independence for a girl. She spent at home being taught by me, who is not a teacher, through COVID. And unfortunately, now moving from Plymouth Center, where she knew everyone, I knew everyone, the staff knew me, she knew the staff knew me, and moving to Fisher this year has been really hard on her. She chose to not go up and dance this year, even though she was eligible to age-wise and performance-wise, simply because she could not have one more thing change. I have spoke at every single one of these meetings, and I have always been honest with my feelings with the board. I have always been open to discussion, and everyone has had my contact information. To start these surveys, to start these discussions, and I think you guys are doing a much better job now in the transparency. I think, like we've all said, it's unfortunate that it had to come out this way, but again, we all learn, we all grow. That's one of the things we tell our kids all the time. You know, they're like, well, you didn't say that like a year ago, you said the rule was different. Well, yeah, but a year ago I was a different person. I learned, I grew. We all can. I think option 2 is probably the best option. I would never entertain 1 because of the capacity we're at. However, I don't think we're ready for option 3. I think, like many people have said, we need to see what this revitalization project comes out with. You are never going to get the people to move into this town if you do not have a good education system. You want to be like the Avon. You want to be like Litchfield. You know, my kids are playing Litchfield. My son wants to go there now. I'm like, really, Litchfield? Like, I'm not moving to cow country, man. We already live in cow country, but it's kind of a suburb. You need to have more data. And I think in order to do that, you need to wait and see what these programs that we are putting so much time, energy, and money into this town for is going to do for our population first. If that works, then the kids will come. And then you will have the support and the money and everything you're looking for. But if you don't wait for that and see how that pans out, then what is the point in the investment in the first place? Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Can't see that very much. Okay. All right, we are going to move on to item number 7, our superintendent's update.
Thank you very much. I would like to start by congratulating Terre Hill High School's 2024 salutatorian, Gia Chorino, and our valedictorian, Milani Giovacchino. This is a tremendous accomplishment. On behalf of the entire school community of Plymouth, I'd like to congratulate these 2 outstanding students, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say. All nice things about me, I'm sure, at graduation at the ceremony on June 11th. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week. On behalf of the Board of Education and the administrative team, we thanked our entire faculty and staff by scheduling Mr. Softy trucks to be at each of our schools each day this week. And we were able to buy every employee in our district, whether it be a teacher, a paraprofessional, nurse, custodian, food service staff, secretary, whoever, an ice cream. I know it's not a lot, but it's what we can afford for their hard work, commitment to our students in the school community. And it's just a nice gesture on our part. Terryville High School, as Mark said earlier, will be participating in the Senior Give Back Day. I just want to go into a little more detail on what the Senior Give Back Day is. It's something that Mr. Holtz and Ms. Hurd started last year. They piloted it, and it aligns with the Rotary's Day of Service. And so we have our seniors, we have about 75 actually signed up at this point, who on May 17th will go out in the community and give back to the community that helped raise them and thank them for everything they've done right before their graduation. And our seniors will be volunteering at the Plymouth Green, the fairgrounds, the police department, the community garden, the library, and the Terryville Congregational Church. And as a reminder, the last 3 days of school are Monday, June 10th through Wednesday, June 12th. And those will be early dismissal days. Harry S. Fisher promotion ceremony will be held on Friday, June 7th at 9:30 a.m. Terryville High School graduation ceremony will be held on Tuesday, June 11th at 6 p.m. And the Eli Terry Step Up program will be held on Wednesday, June 12th at 9 a.m. And again, our last day of school is that Wednesday, June 12th. This is definitely a very exciting time for our students and our parents. We have field days, we have prom, we have end of the year trips, we have Step Up and graduation ceremonies, we have scholarship night. I plan on attending as many as I can of those events, with the exception of prom, because I've been through a bunch of those already as a high school principal for 11 years. And I'm probably not going to go on some of the student trips, but if there's anything the board would like to join me on, I'd be happy to join you in attending any of those events. But it is an exciting time of year that we're all looking forward to. And that's all I have.
Okay. All right, moving on to item number 8, unfinished business. We have our second read and possible motion on our policies that we discussed at the last meeting. So should I do the motion and then we'll discuss it? Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the modified policies as presented.
So moved.
Kelly and Walt. And now we open it up for discussion for our policies. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the policies that we were given last week? Or last month? No? Okay.
I just wanted to make sure there was that one typo error with the missing letters. Were you able to go back and clean that up? Okay, perfect.
Anything else?
That was all I had.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, we are moving on to item number 9, reduction in workforce due to budgetary constraints.
So if the tech guys don't mind popping up on the screen, the slide, I can't see if they're there or not, because I can't see behind the screens. That's not it. It's another presentation.
I was going to say that's not going to help.
All right. So this slide has been shared with the board previously, and we, as a Board of Education, came in with a very reasonable budget for the school at 3.35%. Our goals of that budget were to keep all of our programs, to keep all of our staff, and to continue moving forward with our vision for improvement. And I don't know what's going on
It
there.
was up and then it was.
It's up here. but
It's over
not
there? All right, well, I'm not looking at it, so I'll come over here.
It's not on this one over there.
It's all right. I'm going to turn this a little bit so the board can see it as well. Is that okay? All right. So this is what I shared. You know, the cutting of our budget from a 3.35 to a 2.39 is a very difficult decision. We have people on the Board of Finance and Town Council that would love to give us that money to move the schools forward, but there are difficult decisions that have to be made when you're creating a budget for the town. But the reality is, at the end of the day, you know, this is the hand we're dealt as a board. And so we have 2.39%, which was not all the money we needed to keep our faculty and staff. So I do know from some board members that read Terryville Talks that there's a lot of things out there, and it's a lot of inaccuracies. And honestly, it's pretty disheartening that people would post some things that I've heard about without having the facts or coming to a meeting about budget and throwing some darts at some people around the table. When my door is always open, I will respond to every email or phone call I get, no matter how difficult. And so will our board members if needed, through me. But these are the facts of what we're eliminating in our budget. And I'm going to talk to you about each of these positions right now and talk to you about who's in what position and how this was least impactful on students. So let's start with the line item reductions on the right side, with Park and Recreation, Social Security, Medicare, and Utilities. The Park and Recreation was an agreement that the board had with that department to help offset the cost for the community in utilizing our buildings and supporting our custodians. But we need to eliminate that from our budget because we need to focus more on construction and education. Social Security, Medicare, and Utilities, those are risks. We kind of just looked at the line items and we just pulled a little from each, and it's a risk. And we won't know the result of that until we get towards the end of next year. But the more important piece of the positions. So I'm going to start from the bottom and I'm going to work my way up. Special ed paraprofessional. The special ed paraprofessional is an unfilled position. It's been unfilled all year long. So we're taking that amount of money out of our budget. So when we look at least impact on kids, there's a position that hasn't impacted kids all year that we're taking out of our budget on necessity, based on necessity. Do we want that paraprofessional? Yes. Do we need it to cover IEP hours? It would be very helpful. But we can do without it because we've gone without it all year, so it is eliminated from our budget. Moving up to the library paraprofessional, if you don't recall, 2 years ago, we put in a certified library media specialist into Plymouth Center School. But we still had a library paraprofessional to help with that transition. We don't need the library paraprofessional anymore because we have a full-time person in the library. That library paraprofessional, in hoping to reduce layoffs, has been offered another position as a paraprofessional in our district in a position that is unfilled at this time. So we're trying not to lay that person off. We're trying to offer them another unfilled special ed paraprofessional position. It is different, but the library paraprofessional position in our budget is no longer there. Moving up to the technology support staff. So this is a Tech 1 support staff. Again, we put on new Chromebooks, we have iPads, we have teacher devices. We have so many devices that having that Tech 1 to deal with Chromebooks when they get damaged or broken or whatever it is, even staff devices, we need someone on the front lines. And so what we've decided to do is we're looking at our contract with Twin Lakes, who supports our district. And we've made a hard decision in that contract and how we're moving forward with that organization to save money, where hopefully by removing ourselves and looking at how we can support our district outside the box in a different way, we might be able to put in a part-time support staff with the savings from that. So we're thinking outside the box so it doesn't impact the services to our kids with getting their computers back,
but it is definitely impacting a number of people, whether it be in our organization or that organization, that could be impacted with their positions and jobs. And finally, we have the special education teacher. This special education teacher was not in our budget originally. Our numbers in one specific grade level for children and caseloads for teachers was higher than average. And so we brought this position in. Our hope, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Our hope is that we have enough retirements where we're bringing in staff at a lower wage. And we've had a number of them that have come in, not enough to make any guarantee. But our hope is that we have enough people that are moving on to bigger and better retirement, where we can have some savings and bring that position back because it is needed at EY. It was moving from Fisher to EY to support the group that was going on and the numbers of EY care. So our goal is to bring that position back. I'm hopeful, but I'm not positive at this time, so I'm not going to make the commitment. So at this point in time, there is a position loss there as well. So that's the reductions we had made. No matter which way you look at it, we had to cut $250,000. And there's significant risk that our business manager will tell you is in our budget because the governor of Connecticut told us there was money for reimbursements and out of school tuition, and he's pulled back on it. But then he goes back and says we're going to get it. And then we're told we're not going to get it. But we created our budget with that tuition reimbursement coming back because that's what we were told at the time. That's a $104,000 risk in our budget. So those are the important pieces that you might not find on social media, that if you come to us directly, we will tell you. We're not hiding anything at all. So that's our budget, and those are our budget cuts, and I'm going to put it to the board for approval.
Okay, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the following reduction in positions due to budgetary constraints at the end of the 2023-2024 school year. Technology 1 Specialist, Library Media Paraprofessional at Plymouth Center School, Special Education Teacher at Eli Terry Junior Middle School, and a district-wide paraprofessional. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Greg?
Reluctantly second.
And Pat Piergino? All right.
Who was the first on
Greg.
that? Greg.
Greg. All right, and now we can turn to discussion. Any discussion?
Well, I just, we put a lot of effort into that budget. Put a lot of time in there, put a lot of numbers up there. We came in without any extras in that budget. And yeah, some of us bumped heads about it, but we came in with nothing extra. And then when we turned it over to the Board of Finance in the town, they cut us. Right now, we have, like I said, reluctantly, I second it, but we have no choice. We have to reduce. And if this is what it is, this is what it is. My disappointment, and I stated last meeting, was at the budget, at the tri-board meeting. No parents were there. Mr. Seaman got up, made his pitch, we talked. Nobody supported us. All they talked about was the roads. And I understand there's problems with the roads. But we have four buildings, we got kids that teach here, we have to cut. So we cut. Now people are saying, why this, why that? Come up to the podium. Get up there and speak. It's not like we sit here and just don't do anything. I mean, I don't know how many meetings we had on this budget, cutting, doing this and doing that, and it just boggles my mind that, but then again, like you say, they can go on social media and say what they want. That's why I'm not on social media. That's it, Madam Chairman.
Anyone else? Any discussion? Okay, let's move to a vote. So we're going to authorize the superintendent to advise each person in writing of this action. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, next item. This is the one that we added at the beginning. Adoption of the new budget. I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the new budget as proposed, the increase of $625,000, making our total budget $26,775,292. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Walt, second?
Second.
Second, Michelle. Any discussion? We're going to have a roll vote for this one, but any discussion before we vote? Okay. Mr. Showers?
Yes.
Ms. Tilton?
Yes.
Mr. Foot's not here. Ms. Candrea Florenciani?
Yes.
Mr. Perugino?
Yes.
Mr. Zabushka?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucian?
Yeah.
And Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Okay. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes, 0 no, and 0 abstentions. Mr. Foot would be an abstention, I suppose, because he's not here. Motion carries. Okay. School closure, Board of Education decision. As we discussed earlier, we have 3 options. We are going to take a separate roll call vote on each one of those options. Each board member will vote on each one if we get down to the third or second option. All right, so the discussion regarding the following options with respect to school closure. Option number 1, decide to not entertain the discussion to close a school building. Option 2, to table the discussion for a later date. And option 3, to further pursue a possible reduction of a school building by ordering another facility study to be completed by a qualified outside organization. Okay. Do we want to have should we make the motion first and then discuss? Yes. Okay, so I need to entertain a motion to select one of the following, or one of the previously mentioned options.
So moved.
Kelly?
Second.
Second, Greg? Okay, now we can open that up to discussion amongst us.
Well, I'll start.
Yep.
I want to thank everybody who came out to speak. It's good to hear some of my own thoughts and concerns echoed from other community members. So one of the big concerns that I have is, again, looking at that data from 2019. Since then, we have already reconfigured our schools. Since then, we have had COVID, and that has not only impacted our students, but also we're seeing an uptick in people moving to smaller communities. So I think rushing quickly, because at this moment in time, our numbers may be a little low, runs us the big risk of ending up overcrowded a couple years down the road, especially with the town looking forward to revitalizing and drawing more people in. And, I know I moved here because of the school district. I don't think I'm alone in that. And if we are not mindful of making sure that our school district is strong, I don't see how this plan to revitalize our community will succeed. I also think we need to recognize that we have a pretty high population of students that have special needs, and their needs for space are different than our typical students. And we need to be mindful that we accommodate those with the appropriate amount of classroom and instructional space. Again, that's kind of my thoughts on the subject. I mean, I would like to say let's do a study, but I feel like with everything moving on in the town, we might do this study now, and next year when they build new buildings and bring new businesses in and people start moving in, then all of that data is going to be outdated. So I think we should hold off until we see how these other pieces move into place before we make a big decision. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if anybody wants to.
Yeah, I agree. I have I don't know if I'm being naive, but I have quite a bit of faith in our town leaders that this revitalization may, be just the attraction that our town needs to bring in new families, to bring in new life to our town. And I think that they're serious about it. I think that they're motivated. I think they're organized. And I think that that is information that we're going to need. The results of that kind of revitalization that our mayor and our town leaders are taking on is something that we're going to need to know what the results of that are before we make such a big decision. But again, just my opinion, just like Kelly's.
So I don't disagree with you with that, but I think a study is not going to take a week or two. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be prolonged. It's going to take many months to complete a thorough study. The advancement that you're talking about from the town, that was done. That was a very thorough study as well, and they did recommend closing the school. And that was just recently done. So I think conducting a study over time, and if we, pick the right firm, they will communicate with that committee and get that information and that data, even if you use the same company, to have a thorough study done. Building sizes that, and I'd also like to see in that study the mental wellness of our students and possible the impact of that as well. So I'm for the study. It's going to take a while. This isn't something that's going to happen in June and July, right? It's going to take a while to put together. So,
anyone else?
If we do option 2, which is table,
mm-hmm.
we can take that off the table anytime, if I'm correct.
Yeah, do we have to set a date now?
The only thing I would say is we'd have to communicate with the public on what that date is going to be at some point.
Yeah.
If we decide we're going to now talk about this and it's October, we just need to give the public lead time to know what we're talking about.
Yes,
Right.
Of course.
And that's the other question I have is on this vote, you only have one vote, correct?
Yes.
So
Only one yes vote.
yes vote. Oh.
You would vote for every
okay.
option.
All right. I have trouble with my hearing.
That's okay.
But
you can only vote yes once.
Huh?
You can only vote yes for one of the
okay,
options.
so you can vote no for the rest of them.
Right,
Okay,
right.
okay. All right, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, let's begin with our roll vote for option number 1. Let me remind you, option number 1 is to decide to not entertain the discussion to close a building at all. We just drop it. Mr. Showers?
No.
Ms. Tilton?
No.
Mrs. Kendria Florenciani?
No.
Mr. Perugino?
No.
Mr. Zabushka?
No.
Mrs. Lucian?
No.
And Mr. Seaman?
No.
Okay, that brings us on to option number 2, which, let me remind you as well, is to table the discussion for a later date. So that is option number 2. Mr. Showers?
No.
Ms. Tilton?
Yes.
Mrs. Candrea Florenciani?
Yes.
Mr. Perugino?
Yes.
Mr. Zabushka?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucian?
No.
And Mr. Seaman?
No.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3 no's and 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses. That option number 2 carries. There's no reason for us to move on to option number 3. So option number 2 is what we will go with. We will table this discussion for a later date. I would imagine that this discussion will be tabled until probably the fall at least. And we will keep everyone informed as to when we will bring that back up again. Okay. Am I correct in saying there's no reason to go to option 3?
Yeah.
Right, there's no, okay, great. Just wanted to make sure that I have that correct. All right, our next item, item C, removal of board officers, bylaws policy 9019. I would just like to actually mention that I think that we should possibly table this until our next meeting where we can put it under executive session. I believe we need to give all parties involved the privacy that we allow for our students and our employees if we are talking about any kind of personal business of theirs. So I would like to entertain a motion to table this item until our next meeting where we can put it under executive session.
So moved.
Mr. Perugino?
Second.
Second, Mr. Seaman. Okay. Any discussion on that motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we will table that discussion for next month. If we could please put that into an executive session. Thank you. All right, Educator Evaluation Plan. Mrs. Mozak-Peza, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
So 2 years ago, the state started the process of revising the guidelines related to teacher evaluation. And at the November-ish of this year, they published their first set of examples for what a new teacher evaluation system would look like following the guidelines that they approved at the end of last year. So over the last year and a half or so, the Professional Development and Evaluation Committee in Plymouth has been going through the changes to the guidelines and also reviewing the models that the state has put out to revise our own teacher evaluation plan so that aligns with the new guidelines and also is similar to some of the models that they've put out for districts to look at. And so what you have in your packet is the culmination of that work. It is aligned to the state's guidelines relative to evaluation. It was put together by the PDEC committee, which if you look, the people on the committee are listed on the first page. It involved representatives from each of the buildings. It involves teachers and administrators both. And we had many conversation about the various parts of this that we had to come to consensus on, and this is the consensus document that the PDEC voted to forward to the board for approval. And so if the board approves this, then it goes to the state, and the state does one final check on it to make sure that it's all set, and then it would be implemented starting the beginning of next year.
Okay, for purposes of discussion, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the education plan as discussed.
So moved.
Motion Greg, second?
Second.
Second Michelle. Any discussion? Does anyone have any questions?
I just have one quick question. In looking at the observation cycle, under this observation cycle halfway through, there's a table with the level experience and then the number of required observations.
Yes.
And then 2 pages later under process elements, it describes formal versus informal observations.
Yes.
So in the observation cycle, I only see 3 informal, 2 informal, 3 informal. Are there any cycles like for new teachers where they are having formal observations?
Formals are, if you go a couple pages back, formals come in when you start getting into the tiered supports.
Okay, so new teachers would not have
They would
formal.
still have an informal unless there was something that was concerning, in which case they would go into one of the tiered systems of support and they would go from informal to formal. Okay. The difference really between the informal and the formals are the pre-conference. That's the biggest difference. Length is also a difference, but the big piece is that they would have to have the pre-conference.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other discussions, questions? Okay, let's put it to a vote. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, we are now on to item number 10, Business Managers Report and Personnel Report.
Hello, everyone. You guys have most of my report in written format, but I'd like to touch on a few things that are in there. First is the 2023-2024 budget. We continue to spend along at our traditional historical rates. I did report that I do expect us to have somewhat of a surplus at the end of this year. I've also recommended a few expenditures that we would do at the end of the year, which has been historically traditional for us, which is to pay for a legal retainer up front and also to try to pay down the pension fund variance. We are in good shape there, but it always makes sense to chew that down as much as you can. I provided you this evening the food service financial performance for April. Because of where we closed April and how soon this meeting was, I couldn't get you all of the data for the packet initially, but you can see again, we were able to turn a profit for the month of April. So again, we're having a good financial year for food services, and that again, credit goes to our food service staff under Jessica Peterson and the work that they do. As we look forward, I haven't seen the results of the state statutes come out yet relative to where they will be for free meals next year, but I do not anticipate that they'll be doing free breakfast next year, which is unfortunate. We continue to push universal feeding aside, so next year may be somewhat of a struggle. If you simply look at state sources versus what our net profit is for this year, you'll see that the state sources outweigh what our net profit is, which leads me to a worrisome next year. But we'll be reporting that next year. I also want to report that the budget rollover for next year is complete. So our 24-25 budget is loaded. It's ready to go. The general ledger has been rolled over, and I plan on opening the 24-25 budget probably next week, so that the secretaries and department heads can put in their requisitions for supplies before they leave for the end of the school year, but no orders will be placed until after January 1, so we keep within the correct fiscal year. But I like to open it up so they get those things in, and then while they're off for the summer, we can process those, so when they come back, those supplies are here. You also see that I gave you updates on the projects. They are moving right along very well. So the fences are done at Plymouth Center. We do walkthroughs for the securities I think it's next week. So we're moving right along. So with that, any questions? I know they're coming. Somebody's got them.
Yes.
I knew it.
When I was looking, I like this, Matt. Instead of going through all the stuff, all you gotta do is read this here. It's very easy for me. Well, item 8 at $75,000 in the close the gap in underfunded pension fund.
Yep.
I know when you came here, you had your hands full, and I see you probably still do with some of this here. So you say we're hovering around what, plus or minus 70%? What is the goal?
So according to the actuaries, the goal is to be 100% funded.
Okay,
right?
How much is that? Dollars? Would you know offhand?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I know that we put in, it's in the budget, like $400,000 a year. So, and that kind of keeps us where we are.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to move it up, and it looks like the folks that preceded me were doing the same thing. If there was money that was in surplus, they would try to
okay, so we're about 70% then, you're saying. So that's
plus or minus, yeah,
plus
I mean,
or minus,
somewhere in there. It might
right.
be a little bit more.
Right. And of course, obviously, the legal fees, which always got me upset. But I mean, it's, we have to do it. We have to keep.
I'm hoping at some point we don't have to anticipate that, but right now we still have ongoing.
Right, we have ongoing things going on. Plus, we got teachers' negotiations coming up.
That
we'll probably need.
We're going to need some money for that for next year.
Correct. Okay, no, and of course the security camera. I know I walked around with you before. We looked at this stuff, and everything's coming along just what we talked about down there. So really glad to see that. Thank you, Mike. I think you're doing a hell of a job. Just
Thanks,
so
Pat.
you know. Right.
Thanks, Pat. Anyone else?
Cindy?
No, the one thing that's in there, I'm assuming, is the fencing, right? Page 5, the middle school. They looked at the new line item.
Page 5, the middle school.
Oh, that's insurance.
Is it on the bottom? Yeah, athletic area maintenance.
Yeah, that's the fencing.
Yeah, that's the left field fencing that the tree came down on. That's the deficit. Again, as that project becomes completed, we should be able to receive an additional reimbursement from the insurance company for that. The timing of that is unknown at this point, so.
Anyone else, any questions?
I just want to ask, at one point we were running with negative money, correct, for the food services budget, so now we've made a profit instead of being behind?
That is a correction that I actually made in March.
Right.
We purchased a piece of equipment out of the fund balance at the very beginning of the school year. Okay. And we're required by the state to only carry a limited amount of fund balance. Okay. So that was part of the excess purchase buy down. So realistically, it's not part of the performance of the food service this year. So I pulled it out and it's in this kind of secondary program. And that's what that is. Okay. But to answer your question, yes, we would be running a profit now, even if I left that in there.
Okay, great.
All right. We all set? All right. Mr. Falcone, personnel report.
There's two things I'd like to point out in the personnel report. The first is, again, thanking Ms. Morelli, as you see with the transfers into Mrs. Celentano's room. I've been in that classroom. She's doing an amazing job, and our staff is doing an amazing job of really trying to work through an impossible situation with our children, and so I wanted to thank her. I also wanted to thank Mr. Brian Rosano resigned from his varsity baseball coaching position mid-season due to a personal reason. And I want to thank Patrick Norton here at the high school, who stepped in from the JV position to the varsity coaching position. And I want to thank Pete Vilius, who stepped in from being a social studies teacher to being our JV baseball coach and social studies teacher. So I wanted to thank those individuals as well, so that you'll see on the personnel report.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 11, public comment, which will run the same way the last one did as well.
Hi. Angela Bianca, 91 Griffin Road. I'd just like to first thank Ms. Tilton for sharing her concerns about closing the school. I really appreciate that, and all the support for those of you that voted for option 2. As I'd like to say, I'm not opposed to option 3, but I know we already voted, but I imagine it's going to be brought up on the table in the future. So it'd be really nice to have some cost associated with that too, just to know what we're voting on, because I know those are quite costly studies, and money's not something we have an abundance of. So that would be really great. I think something to keep in mind too is that the obstacles that our children have faced in this setting, in this time, is unique to them. And we need to not compare to prior generations and prior children. We need to really treat them with their own challenges and concerns. We have higher needs of special needs. More room is important these days than what we did 10, 20, 40 years ago. So that's really important. I know our schools are partially empty, but how we're utilizing that space can be, maybe we can get a little more creative and give our kids some more opportunities and options in those that need it. I know money is important, but our children's well-being is our #1 priority. I think there's a lot of misinformation about the money that eventually this will save for us. So I think it's really important. I know everybody gets up here and shares their thoughts, but facts are really important. How this saves our town money, it really needs to be more than everyone else's opinion up here. It really needs to be written down in, like, yes, okay, it saves the Board of Ed money, but taxpayers, we're still maintaining that building. So that building cost is still ours. Yes, it gives us more money to spend on teachers, which is great, but let's be very upfront about the cost of everything that's coming with, and that our taxpayers are not saving money on that building. We're still paying for heat. We're still doing all of that, unless we need to know how it's going to be utilized. I did have one other comment. When you were taking the vote, there was a comment, I think Mr. Seaman, you made it about a recent study being recommended to close a school. I was really unclear if that was the 2019 study or the revitalization study that you were talking to, because I did attend the revitalization study and I don't recall there being any recommendation to close the school on that one. So I was just a little confused by that. That's all.
Brian Dunn, 19 Carriage Drive. I think the vote to choose number 2 was correct. I don't think we were ready. I don't think we have all the information that we need to make that type of decision. I personally don't think we should close the schools. I've always been told that districts and towns are like businesses, and I've always been told by owners that I work for that if you're not growing, you're dying. So we need to have a positive future that we're going to continue to grow. Mr. Falcone, you had a concern about the Terryville talks and stuff. This, I think you might be causing your own problems with the communication being half there, because we got an email from you saying that you guys had a budget, it was cut, and then these 4 positions are going to be cut, and that was all the email said. So of course people are going to see, 4 teachers going out, special ed kids being left behind. It was later discussed that some of these positions were unfilled, so it changes the narrative. Maybe that outrage wouldn't have been there if I know your intentions were good, keep people up to speed as far as the information, but half the information is what caused the problem. Thank you.
Sarah Nazardo, 16 Whitney Court. So I'm not unfamiliar with budget cuts. I work for the Walt Disney Company. I'm in charge of multi-million dollars of budgets there and a very large team. So I understand budget cuts need to happen in a lot of cases, and there was a lot of factors that need to go into that. I think the information presented right here on the slide would have been really, really helpful, at least a fraction of it in that email. I did respond with a question. I didn't get a response. It was last week, but I know you get lots of emails all the time, and you have a hard job. So I was not at all faulting for not getting a response. So I was one of the people that posted on Terryville Talks, and that's just because I'm a parent of 3 children. 2 of them are in special education, and the other one is in a 504 tier program. So seeing the email looks like, okay, 50% of all the cuts were coming from special education. As somebody that's had such great experiences with the current system, it's been working for us. My kids are doing so great, and I also have a special education teacher hired into my home that comes twice a week. But I've got nothing but the best support from the special education staff. They were in 1st and 2nd grade during COVID. They missed out on hugely formative years on top of learning disabilities, and I can't speak highly enough about the special education program. So even just a very small amount of information given to that context would have been so helpful. Context is everything. So that's really where I'm coming from too.
Me again, Becca Allen, 17 Megan Boulevard. I want to thank everybody that voted for option 2. I really do think that is the best move right now for our community. You as board members, you sacrifice your time and a lot of effort that you put into this. You ran for these positions. You wanted to help our students and our community. And I just want to remind you all of that as we go into future conversations about this, that is what is at the core of this, is that this was a position you guys wanted. You're here for our students and what is best for them, their educations, and our community as a whole. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I just want to make sure that you guys know that.
Anyone else for public comment?
Hi everyone, my name is Erica Lavoie. I know that all of you know me already because I think I've spoken at every single meeting except the last one, which I wasn't able to attend due to my children being sick. So I could talk to our Board of Ed all day long as much as I want, not in a meeting setting, because we can all do that, because they have accessible emails and phone numbers that you can contact them with. I want to talk to everybody that's sitting here tonight that either is a parent or lives in this town. I've been at every single one of these meetings, besides the last one. I'm so glad that you're all here tonight, but we need this every single meeting. I'm a working parent too. I have 2 children with disabilities. Most of you in this room probably know them in some way, shape, or form. We all have a lot going on, but like, we also need to show up for our kids. I know that we elect these people to sit on a board, but that's not the world we live in anymore. So if anything's going on within our district that you want to take concern with, please feel free to contact any of them at any point in time, or myself, because I want to hear about it too, because we all, regardless of whether we're sitting up there at a special table with a name tag, or we're sitting here, or for those of you sitting at home, right? We all need to come together to fix this. I definitely recommend that you all go back 2 years past on our last meetings every single month and read them, because you'll be able to see that the money issue has been a problem here for a long time, and it's a bigger problem than what any of these people sitting here can do. So while I want you to know them and know me, and it would be great if as a community we can all come together to help our kids, we also have a lot of other work to do. So I just walked into this meeting. I have no idea what was discussed here, and I'll bring myself up to speed, but I will tell you, and my heart is racing right now. I was so happy when I pulled into this parking lot and saw more than 12 cars, because the last few meetings, besides all of these vehicles, there's maybe been 10 vehicles there. So please continue to come and show up for our kids, because it's important. Figure out what you need to figure out. If it's a babysitting thing, form a group of parents and say, okay, you're going this month, you're going this month. We'll collaborate on ideas with what happened. Like, that's what we need to all do, because that's what our community needs right now. And that's absolutely 100% what our kids need. Thank you.
Candace Telke, 82 Ridge Road. I want to say thank you for voting for option number 2, those of you that did. I respect those of you that did not. I understand as well. I think patience is a virtue in this case. And I think that continuing forward and, like Erica said, getting people to the meetings and continuing to have the transparency. I don't know that you're going to have to wait a long time for those discussions or those meetings to happen, but I do think that waiting even a little while to build that trust back up is important. I wanted to specifically say thank you to Brian for acknowledging specifically Miss Morelli. My son had her, and she's fantastic. And she's still his favorite teacher to this day, even now he's here. And I think there is no better soul to handle those children after such a devastating year, after such a devastating few years than her. So very good job on that, and thank you for noticing that. Also, noticing Mr. Norton coaching the team, because I have a son on the baseball team and I have been at every single game. And I can tell you those boys are playing differently this week than they were 2 weeks ago. And I can appreciate that, Coach Norton stepped up and saw that. And he really plays into those boys and what their talents are and what's going to give them the ambition they need to succeed in high school. So thank you for that. I also just wanted to say, in regards to the budgetary constraints, this is a big thing for me because I'm in accounting and I understand the need to adjust budgets as the year goes on. Shame on me for not having been participated in that, but like I said, I'm an accountant, so it's kind of a busy time of year for me. I can't really read more budgets. It would put me to sleep. But my only concern, I guess, is including $104,000 as a risk as income is kind of like me including my husband's overtime as my annual income at home. So from my professional perspective, I would probably not include money like that as guaranteed income going forward. But I do look forward to having these conversations going forward, and thank you very much for your time.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to board liaison reports. Harriet Fisher Elementary School.
Well, our last meeting was moved a week later, and this one is pretty quick given that it's already the second Wednesday. So Fisher is meeting, I believe, next week. So I have nothing new from what I shared last time.
Okay. Plymouth Center School.
Friday is the last day the student store is opened at Plymouth Center. On the 23rd is early dismissal. On the 24th is field day, and 28th and 29th is the art show. And I'd like to say good job to the ladies of the PTA. They've been doing a great job this year, and I'm impressed.
All right. Eli Terry Junior Middle School.
At their PTA meeting, they decided to vote on adding Wit and Grit to next year and the following year. So they were going to really concentrate on fundraising for that. They were able to get a discount if they locked in 3 years in a row, and everyone voted for yes for that. The end of the year is coming, so new board positions at all of the schools are up for grabs, more or less. So anyone that's looking to be president, secretary, vice president, treasurer, and even if you don't want one of those roles, there's lots of committees you can be on: fundraising, 5th grade, 8th grade, staff appreciation week. So like, if you don't want a big role and you just want a little role, just go to those PTA meetings and you can just take on a small role, you can just listen, but it's all really important. And they're just getting ready for all of the end of the year events.
Okay. All right, Terryville High School, Mr. Foote normally goes. I'm sure you did not have a chance to go because you have class that night, right? Okay. I do know from past years for Terryville High School, the PTSA, this is a very busy time of year for them. They're their final push for fundraising. They normally sell flowers for Mother's Day. I don't have firsthand knowledge as to whether that's happening this year, but if it is, please support them. They're usually at the Terryville Congregational Church, I believe. It's their primary focus is scholarships and fundraising for the after grad party. Our after grad party is coming up quick, so I'm sure they could use that last little push. So please go buy some flowers for Mother's Day. At Advance, I was unable to attend the last meeting because I cannot drive. I've broken my ankle, so that meeting didn't get attended this time. Hopefully next month, maybe somebody can attend the meeting. All right. We're going to try something a little different tonight. If anyone has any board comments, please speak. Anybody have anything? Go ahead.
Of course I have.
Please do.
I've noticed, since I've been on the board for the last 2.5 years, we came on, it was like this, and I can see it now starting to smooth out, really and truly. With our budget work, what we're doing with the staff, what we're doing with the kids, and it's starting to smooth out. We had problems over at Plymouth Center, we got other problems, and with the schools here, but now I can see it starting to smooth out. We're making some intelligent decisions. Made a few tonight. I just want to say that. And I want to thank everybody for participating. It's great when you get up there because there's things that we learn also, but it's great that you're come here and you're going to get the facts, not what you get on that talk thing there, but you're going to get the facts right here. Here's your numbers, here they are. If you want, you can go to the Board of Finance, they're going to give you the same numbers. So thank you for coming up tonight. That's it.
Yeah, I do. I'd like to explain my vote. I know it was an unpopular decision. I'm not against education. I'm not against children. I wouldn't be here if I was. When I got on the board, I pushed for bringing back home economics, otherwise known as family consumer science. Now, industrial arts, the STEM programs, and that. Where my thought process comes from is our expenses go up every year, and our income is limited every year. So the reason that I voted for having the study to start obtaining the facts, not to push anything, start obtaining facts. To hopefully, possibly prevent the loss of any staff or programs within the school. The town is, constrained. The school system is definitely constrained. And if there was a way to save some money to prevent some of those programs from being lost or staff being lost that are important to our children in the schools, that's where my thought process was. So I understand where you're coming from. I appreciate where you're coming from. I just wanted to let you know where I was coming from as well. That's all. So thank you.
I just want to make sure to say thank you to all the faculty and staff. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week this week. Love everything that you guys are doing, and I know it's a tough time of year to get through that final push, so thank you for all that you are doing. I also just want to say, Cindy and I attended the play. It was amazing. It was great to see those new lights in the auditorium. It's much brighter and easier to walk around. So great job with getting all of that money into place to update those things. And I just want to encourage other board members, it's so great to go in. There's the art shows coming up. I think we're all welcome to attend things like that so we can see. I know my kid is excited to show me all the stuff he's been working on. So, it'd be great if you guys could get in too. Those are in the evening if you're working. So just keep up the good work and let's make it through the end of the year. And thank you to everyone who came out and spoke tonight. It's important to hear multiple perspectives. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Kelly pretty much said the same thing I was going to say, but the school play, I went in there before the kids had everything painted, and then to see the final presentation, it's amazing. These kids put so much effort into anything that they do, the play, the art, a sport, and it's so nice when people can show up and support those. I saw quite a few staff members went to the show as well. The newsletters that we get from all the schools, the pictures are great. It's very detailed. You don't even have to be in the school to know what's going on, and that's really appreciated. And for Teacher Appreciation Week, thank you for everything that you guys do. And for the PTAs, you guys do a lot of work as well, so thank you for everything that you do.
Great. All set?
I just want to say to everyone that came out, thank you. And for everybody at home watching, thank you also. I think it's great that we're starting to work together as a team. And that's all I have.
Good. All set? Yes, I agree as well. I'm very happy. I say this almost every month. Thank you for those who come to the board for public comment. It is appreciated, even if we can't have that answer, go back and forth with you at this time. There is a reason for that, and someone will get back to you if there's a question or if there's a concern that needs to be addressed. So I do appreciate it. I'd love to hear the different points of view. You bring things up that we may not have thought of, and it is important that we have that input from everyone. I also would like to expand a little on what Mr. Perugino said about things running smoothly. I want to say that I personally attribute that to a strong administrative team. I appreciate our administrative team, and I think that sometimes they take a little bit of heat from the public, and I think it is completely unwarranted, and I believe that a strong administrative team is vital to a school system. So I just want to put that out there. I know others share my opinion, others do not, and that's okay. It's okay to disagree. That being said, our next board meeting, the regular board meeting of the Plymouth Board of Education, is on June 5th, 2024. Oh, I'm sorry, June 7th.
June 5th.
June 5th, okay. June 5th, 2024 at 7 p.m. right here in the cafeteria. So June 5th at 7 p.m. Right here in the cafeteria at Terryville High School. I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:36 p.m. Greg?
Second.
Cindy? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.